Good morning or good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Somewhere in the BW system right now, there is a query nobody has opened in 4 years. Its owner left the company. It sits on a cube that feeds 2 other cubes. And when somebody finally asks whether it can be dropped, the honest answer is that nobody knows. Because finding out means a workshop, a spreadsheet, and about 3 days of somebody's time. So it gets migrated, not because anyone wants it, but because providing it is safe to delete costs more than carrying it across. Multiply that by a few thousand objects and you have the real cost of a BW migration. So not the rebuilding, the guessing. That is what we want to talk about this morning, because scoping is the long pole of a BW migration, and it happens way before the budget is approved and the least evidence anyone will ever have. So 2 colleagues are with me today. Eric Blondin, our VP Technology and Client Partner for Data Management, is going to spend a couple of minutes on what we have built and where it fits in a migration program. And afterwards, Ingo Hilgefort, our Senior Director of SAP Business Data Cloud, takes you through the product itself in a demo and shows you how a real scan works. Eric, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first public walkthrough of PlaniFi SAP BW Migration Accelerator. In this presentation, you'll get a good understanding of what this solution actually can help you with over your SAP Business Data Cloud strategy. Before we start, though, let me introduce myself. I'm Eric Blondin, partner at SimpleFi, and I'll be giving you a quick walkthrough how SAP Business Data Cloud is positioned by SAP and how SimpleFi itself actually works with these solutions. So first of all, one thing to be aware, SimpleFi, we're really a firm of partners focused on business process design, business content, automation, and implementation of planning, analytics, and data management solutions. So we do not implement S4. We don't implement those line of business solutions. We really help you focusing on your FP&A requirements, your analytics, and how you want to organize your data for subsequent AI requirements you may have today. So we are one of SAP's go-to partners for everything around analytics and planning, and we have offices in Canada and the US. As mentioned, our technology focus is really Business Data Cloud, analytics, which includes Analytics Cloud, Datasphere, Databricks, BW, obviously, HANA, and a few other components. We also do group reporting from a financial consolidation perspective. PlaniFi is really how we brand the different tools we've built over time. So people who have worked with us on the FP&A side of things have seen us deliver a lot of content over the past few years. Now, with the Business Data Cloud strategy, obviously, we've started investing a little bit more on tools that will enable customers to move from their on-premise or private cloud environments to a full Business Data Cloud hosted solution. When you look at SAP Business Data Cloud, this is really where you have your semantic layer and all your data within your SAP environment. This, having that initial layer where you manage all your data, this is really what enables your business AI requirements with all the solutions SAP has today and a lot of them that are coming up in the future. So SAP Business Data Cloud really should be seen as this is your first step to enable your business for AI on SAP data and a lot of non-SAP data as well. Today's presentation is not a lot around the details of Business Data Cloud and how it integrates with non-SAP solutions, but I really encourage you to look at other of our webinars. If we look at SAP Business Data Cloud, this is SAP Business Data Cloud is what contains SAP Analytics Cloud, contains SAP Datasphere. If you've watched other of our webinars, this is where you hear also about data products that are integrated with other solutions. And this is also BDC Connect, which allows you to integrate with a lot of other platforms today around your data strategy. And obviously, we have an embedded data, SAP Databricks. The component we'll be talking about today, though, is in some cases, okay, SAP BW Private Cloud Edition can be very useful if you have a lot of value in there that you want to bring into SAP Business Data Cloud. But for some of you, and a lot of our customers we've been talking to, this may be too much. So maybe it's a bit, there's too much investment, or there's a lot of legacy in there you don't want to keep. Bring it all of it into Business Data Cloud will cost a lot, and there's no real return on investment of doing that move. So what you're going to be seeing today with the BW Migration Accelerator is, instead of bringing your BW in the cloud, why not just look at what you have in your existing BW and then recreate automatically those objects in Datasphere. So you are not bringing over your BW in Business Data Cloud, you are recreating those using really what SAP Datasphere can provide. This helps a lot of our customers, but obviously some of them still need to bring their BWPC in. So we are not addressing that use case today. Really for the ones that potentially are evaluating not bringing BW in the cloud, but want to keep some of their valuable investments over the year. So the PlaniFi SAP BW Migration Accelerator is really the solution to help you convert your BW assets into Datasphere assets. And to really get into more details, let me hand it over now to Ingo Hilgefort. Ingo, the floor is yours.
Welcome to this quick demonstration of our PlaniFi Migration Accelerator for SAP BW. My name is Ingo Hilgefort. I'm a Senior Director with SimpleFi, and I will be your host for this quick demonstration. What we see right now is the main screen, your starting screen as part of the Migration Accelerator. As you can see, we can have multiple connections. We'll also see on the left-hand side, we have something called scans. We're going to come to that. We have the inventory and audit. We have the workbench, lineage and impact, and most important in this case, the Datasphere generation. As part of the connections dialog, you as a customer can simply configure your different BW system. This might be one, these might be multiples. As part of the scans, you actually have access to a history. So we can basically scan your BW system for information more than once. The information is kept in a database, so that even if you actually run through all the different objects of your BW system and you, so to speak, cutting the connection to your BW system, we can still actually leverage that information to show you things like a lineage, an impact, your inventory, as well as generate Datasphere objects out of the information that we gathered. So we don't have to go back each time to your BW system. So one of the questions customers always ask is specifically when we're talking about moving from BW to a Datasphere is, which of the objects should I actually be moving, and also what volume do these providers actually have? So one of the items we have integrated into our Migration Accelerator is the ability to actually gather the information from BW in terms of how large the info providers are in terms of record volume as well as disk space, and how is it, for example, distributed. In this case, you can see we have the object. We can start with the provider, or we can start with an info object. So let's go through the first option. First, you can see I have all my different providers. I can choose by different info areas, or for example, by different types. In my case, I simply type in, I know that I have info providers that start with a Z as the name. So here is my different objects. So I can see this is an advanced DSO object. It actually shows me already the number of records and the size pretty much on disk. It also shows on the right-hand side now where actually the records are. So I have like close to 500,000 records active, nothing in the change log, And now the important part, I can see now basically as part of the scan, the details of this object in terms of actual like info objects. And then I can go in and, for example, say, okay, I want to see, in my case, the calendar months. And then if I scroll down in the screen, I get shown a distribution in terms of how the records, in my case, the 500,000, are being distributed across the different members, which also tells me, like, is there potentially historical data that I could remove? How much volume of data should I expect when we're talking Datasphere, and how much do I want to bring over? So the alternative is basically, if we go back to the beginning, that we do the same workflow, but we're starting from an info object level. So in my case, remember we had the calendar months. So I'm going to start with the calendar month. In this case, here's the calendar month, and it shows now all the different info provider or DSO objects that are actually using this info object. So I'm going to go down the list, and you can see here's my advanced DSO object, and I'm going to end up at the same information, but just to show the difference, basically, I have the ability to either start from a provider level, or I can start from the info object level, which then basically gives me the information, how large, how big is the data set that I might have to bring over to Datasphere. So now let's take a look at basically the scans and the inventory. As I mentioned, the scans is giving you the ability to have multiple runs against your BW system and keep a history if you would like. The inventory basically shows you now this is what your BW system contains. So you can see it shows you the different object types, it shows you the different areas. It shows you also kind of like, that in my case, a huge set of queries actually haven't been used. So I can actually start looking into those details. If I would like to see further details, actually, in my case, I'm going to scroll down. I can see like the list of objects. I can filter based on types or naming convention. So in my case, I'm going to go back to our demo example of our DSO object. So I can select the DSO object, and it shows me again the size. And now on the right hand side, I can see basically what kind of object it is. It shows me that it's an advanced DSO object, how many records it contains, where these records are basically in terms of like, is this active or is this like a change log coming in? It also shows me basically the different info objects and the different transformations that are being leveraged as part of the advanced DSO object. And if I would like, I can go into and open up the complete details, and I get them basically shown as a full screen. I can see the different characteristics. I can see the key figures in this case. If I want to go a little bit in more details, I can open up the lineage and the impact. So I'm going to go and take our example again. So here's my advanced DSO object. So it actually, in this case, it shows me basically that here's my advanced DSO object. I have a transformation. It moves to a second advanced DSO object, and there is 2 queries based on this. So I can also basically change the depth. So in my case, I'm going to go to like the full depths. I want to see basically everything. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger here. And you can see that it goes even to the source system. It shows the data source, the transformation, and it shows how data basically goes from the source up to the query in this case. So now let's go and actually talk about how do we get now our DSO object into Datasphere. So that's where the Datasphere generation comes in. So first of all, I can decide which information I would like to see, and you can see we're going back to the scans. So which of the scans would I like to use as the base for my objects? In my case, I'm going to go and say this is what I would like to use. My info provider in this case is an advanced DSO object. As the next step, the system shows me that this advanced DSO object does have two queries based on it, and it's basically asking if we would like to use these to be considered. So if we only take the DSO object, we're going to generate a fact table, we're going to generate an analytical model. In case of the queries, we also might have to generate calculated and restricted key figures, things like variables. So all the items that in the query are possible would then become part of the analytical model. So in my case, I'm going to go and say, yes, this is what I would like to do. I go to the next screen. And basically, the system now shows me an inventory. So you can see this is my provider. These are all the different info objects, and these are the queries. And you see the info objects, some of them are basically characteristics, and some of them are key figures. So yes, this is what I would like to do. And now the important part is what happens. So you're being actually shown per item from BW what is going to be generated, and you do have the ability to basically have your naming convention being considered as part of how the technical names are being generated. So for example, for something like an info object city, you will see that we generate a local table and we're going to generate a dimension view. Now, there might be other dimensions where there's separate text. There might be dimension with separate attributes or hierarchies being generated as well. So you can see I can, if I want to, basically change the technical name, for example. So instead of just dim, I could have dimension. And this can also be filled basically by your like pre-approved naming convention. So this isn't just kind of like generated and you do not have the ability to change it. This is just a suggestion and you do get the permission basically, so to speak, to change these items. Now the other part you can see is in this case, we have a local table, we have a fact view, we have the analytical model, and we'll basically have all the key figures are being generated as part of the analytical model as well. So let's go to the next screen. This is pretty much basically what's then happens. So the system will generate the complete set of, in this case, the ZSN files, and you do get actually the ability to download the file and then import the objects into your Datasphere system. So here we are now in SAP Datasphere. So we downloaded the file from the Migration Accelerator, and we're just going to show how this looks like as part of the import. So I'm just going to go and say I want to basically import objects from a CSN file. And I'm going to go to the folder. And you can see I have different kind of like JSON files for the local tables, for the fact views, the dimensions, and the analytical model. And I also have a JSON file, which basically tells me in which order I should import them today. So I'm just going to show two items. So I'm going to take the local table for the store object. And yes, that's what we would like to import. And as soon as then basically the import for the local store has finished, I can go in and say, I also want to import the dimension for the local store to show basically that these items are built on top of each other. So now I have my dimension as well. In this way, you would basically bring in all the different objects. Today, in the version that we have of the BW Migration Accelerator, you manually import the objects. For a soon to be available version, we will then basically download the items and use the official APIs from SAP to deploy all the different objects in one go into your SAP Datasphere system. So I hope this gave you a good idea on what the product is capable of. And in case you're interested, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Wow, that was simply incredible. Thank you, Ingo, and thank you, Eric. If you take one thing from this morning, take that the expensive part of a BW migration is not the rebuilding. It is deciding what deserves to be rebuilt. And honestly, most teams decide that on opinion, because the evidence has always cost too much together. But as you see, it does not anymore. On timing, mainstream maintenance for SAP BW 7.5 runs to the end of 2027. And because the scan is read-only, running it commits you to nothing at all. So ask us for one on your own system. You will get the inventory, the usage buckets, the lineage, and a report telling you exactly what could not be resolved and why. Nothing silently defaults. This concludes our webinar for today. The recording goes out shortly after this and sits on our on-demand channel with the rest of the series. If you want to experience our PlaniFi Migration Accelerator for SAP BW and have a scan of your own landscape, reply to the follow-up email and it comes straight to us. Next in the series, this next Thursday, the 27th, is when Beth McBreen covers the move from BPC consolidations to SAC consolidations and why we're willing to put a fixed price on it. Thank you for your time this morning. Have a good one.